You can have the best high availability architecture in the world, but if you don't know where the gaps are, you're just one hidden misconfiguration away from an outage. And that is exactly what is happening. Companies are adding cloud layers, hybrid environments, containerized workloads, each one adding more complexity, but they are not regularly auditing whether their HA setup can still handle a real failure. And by that time, it's already too late. They are facing downtime. SIOS Technology has built a quick, high availability health check to help teams find those blind spots before they become business problems. And today we have with us Trey Isaac, Senior Product Support Engineer at SIOS Technology, to walk us through what it is and why organizations need one now. Trey, it's great to have you on the show.
Happy to be here.
It's my pleasure. Let's start with the fundamentals. What exactly is a quick high availability health check, and what problem is it designed to solve for modern IT infrastructure?
Before we can kind of get into the weeds of a health check, I like to make sure we have a common understanding of what high availability is. So what I like to tell people is just think of, you have this one system that's hosting all of your critical application and your critical data for your organization. Something bad happens to that one system, you will want a second system to take over hosting the same application and the same data. So that concept of, moving between one system to the second system is high availability at a high level, right? So the health check portion of that would be to, in the event something unforeseen happens to the first system, you will want to make sure System B is prepared to take over all the resources, application, and data. The challenge with that could be the application itself is going to have a bunch of settings. The OS operating system itself is going to have a bunch of settings. And the HA portion is going to have settings as well. You need to make sure all three of those things are intertwined correctly so that moving between one system to the other happens properly. So that's why getting with the, experienced team like SIOS is important. With our high availability solution, LifeKeeper, we have a lot of experience, just getting into the weed of all of those settings, making sure they match up properly. And in an event something bad happens to the first system, the second system is ready and prepared to jump in and host that application and data.
Perfect. Thank you so much for explaining, of course, the concept of high availability. Now let's talk about the quick high availability health check.
Yeah. So quick high availability health check is just, like I said, just going through all of your settings between your application, your operating system, your high availability solution like LifeKeeper, making sure, the services are configured properly, making sure the storage requirements are configured properly between all systems that's going to participate in the high availability solution. So just a matter of just going through, making sure everything matches properly and is functioning correctly in the event you have a high availability event happens.
When we talk about quick high availability health check, is it possible for you to quickly walk us through how does it look like in practical, how teams put in place, how it checks whether everything is working fine so they're ready for high availability and disaster recovery?
Well, see, quick health check can be a number of ways, right? It can actually be a live quick high availability health check where we actually, do some type of screen share with you. We get on your systems and we, go through whatever important application that you're hosting. We making sure that looks good on system A. And then we kind of do the same concept on system B live. We go through, open up the application, make sure everything looks good. Operating systems, we go through, making sure, your services are configured correctly. We make sure, your storage is configured correctly. You have your process are set to the right startup types, everything. So you could do a live version, and then you can kind of do a non-live version where, you just send us all the logs from all the systems that's going to be part of your HA solution. And we just kind of manually go through all your logs to making sure they match up properly. So it's a number of ways to attack it. Those are just the first two that come to mind.
Can you also talk about why is now the right time for organizations to prioritize HA health check? What has changed in terms of infrastructure complexity, cloud adoption, or outage risk?
Well, what I like to tell people is starting a routine starts now, right? So you don't want to just keep kicking the can down the road and saying, hey, I'll do a health check next quarter or I'll do a health check next physical year, right? Because at that point, you're just crossing your fingers, hoping nothing happens until next quarter or next year. So you'll never be able to get a true peace of mind if you don't just start doing your health check now and making sure that if something bad happens, an unforeseen event happens, all systems participating in your high availability solution like LifeKeeper is ready to take over and do its job.
Can you talk about what are the most common gaps or vulnerabilities you typically uncover when customers they run a HA health check for the first time?
So with the high availability health checks I have done, and whenever I'm working with someone, I like to tell them, just think of all the systems that's part of your high availability solution like LifeKeeper as siblings, right? And you want those siblings to be identical twins, right? And what tends to happen is, you have your main system that's hosting everything, and it kind of gets all the love per se. If you need more disk space, you'll add it to that main system and forget to do it on the backup system. If you have to change some type of admin rights, right? You might change the admin right on the main system and kind of just forget to do it on the backup system. So a lot of times what we uncover is that the systems are not identical twin. And the first system goes down, things are not going to work properly on the second system.
How does a health check translates into tangible business value? Because of course we can talk about technology as much as we can, but without bringing business value, it's all kind of pointless. Though we do have to do a lot of plumbing, but beyond uptime, what are the downstream impacts on risk, cost, and operational resilience that these health checks bring to the business?
Just think of it like this, right? Of course, the first obvious answer, no one likes downtime, right? Downtime costs us some type of money. If you're running a restaurant and you have this type of online ordering app that's not available, you're probably going to miss that customer and they're probably just going to go somewhere else to get something to eat, which is not the end of the world for the customer, right? But just think of some of these more critical organizations like an emergency call center, the effects they have if they're down, right? Their responsibility is routing the fire department to a fire or routing the police department to emergency. Imagine the effects if they can't route people to a life-threatening situation, or you have a delay because your systems are down, you have no high availability, you have a delay, which time is of the essence of getting them to an emergency situation. So the more important your organization is, I would say, to the greater society, the more grave not having a HA solution could be to everyone involved.
Looking ahead, how do you see HA assessments evolve as infrastructure becomes even more distributed and more software defined?
Yeah, what I would say to that is, as it's kind of getting cheaper to spin up more systems, right? And, we have all of these different data centers popping up around the world, right? So organizations are adding more systems, and quote unquote, to my other example, more siblings to their high availability solution, right? I have seen LifeKeeper clusters come through with 4 systems, right? Which a basic one would be 2. Now you're getting 3, 4, right? So the more siblings you add to a high availability solution, the higher the chance of human error comes in, right? Where system A don't match system D, system B don't match system C don't match system D, right? So more systems you have a part of your solution, the more you have to make sure everyone is identical. So that's the risk you run when you're, adding more systems to the environment.
Are there any specific industries or use cases where you have seen HA health check makes the most immediate impact. These industries, they cannot make a compromise. They must have health checks there.
One industry that comes to mind is an airport, right? So, these planes have to get off the ground. People got places to go. Some people leisure. Some people have important places to be, right? So, you won't want an airport to be able to be up all the time. So, people can book their tickets and the airplane can actually get off the ground. So airport is definitely, is one industry I can think of that comes to mind.
And what should teams do after they have completed a health check? What do they prioritize finding and turn them into action? Because just going to a doctor and getting your, hey, this is your report is fine. But if your cholesterol is high, you have to do something about that as well.
What you should do after you get your health check report, that's what, at SIOS, we give our customers after a health check report. We hope that you immediately make each correction on the health check report, right? If one disk on the first system is bigger than the disk on the second system, I will hope you immediately make that correction before an unexpected HA event happens, right? So immediately implementing all the recommendations we give you is going to be critical to your success.
Trey, thank you so much for joining us today and breaking down why high availability health checks matter. And they matter now more than ever. And you also mentioned some industries where they don't have any room for not having it. Thank you so much for all those great insights. And I look forward to having you back on the show. Thank you.
Thank you, Swap. Thank you for having me.